on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. And today's topic, I wanted to talk about something that I have mentioned on this channel before, and I've seen it in the comments that I wanted to go a little bit more into depth with it. Because especially following this week's edition of AEW Dynamite, it is something that I am seeing that AEW is doing a lot more of lately, and that is setup and delivery. And, you know, in the wrestling space, there's been so much talk about storytelling and storytelling and storytelling. I often feel, as a storyteller myself, that a lot of what's said is kind of a rudimentary understanding of the concept of storytelling, and there are certain principles to it. And I brought this up in some of the storytelling videos I had before. One of those things is setup and delivery. Triple H over in WWE has been very, very good with setup and delivery over the last couple of years, which I do think is a contributing factor to their recent success and turning that ship around from the type of booking that they were doing prior to that. AEW has, at times, in my opinion, lacked that ability of setup and delivery. A lot of people go and say that they just don't have stories and there's no storytelling, which, you know, objectively is obviously not true. Obviously, there are storylines, there are inherent storylines of wrestling anyway. But what people are more getting at is, as I've mentioned before, storycraft, and a technique, as I said, what we're talking about today, setup and delivery. This past week on AEW Dynamite, AEW did a lot of setup and delivery. I'm not sure where the change came from, but it is a definite noticeable change, especially the last couple of weeks on their shows. So one of those, and we saw it from the very beginning of the show, early on in the show, the first two segments. The first segment, you had the Elite coming out and talking to Swerve Strickland, setting up a controversy as to whether or not Swerve Strickland wanted to be on their team for the upcoming Blood and Guts match, which they announced on this night, which will be happening in about a month. They set up the controversy of, okay, Swerve, we want you on our team. Swerve doesn't want to be on their team. They then had the Acclaim come out and make the save. So now we have setup and delivery there. We have a conflict set up, Swerve, the Elite. We also had a conflict that was already priorly set up between the Acclaim, which the prior week, the Elite cut off Max Caster's rap. So that plays into them now being in this. So apparently this Blood and Guts match is coming up. Right now we've got 4 competitors on the Elite side and 4 competitors on the opposite side, which apparently will be Swerve Strickland along with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Whether they're going to keep to the 5-man format and each team's going to add a 5th guest, which would be very interesting if they made those 5th man the mystery opponents. Like there's a mystery 5th man for the Elite and a mystery 5th man for Swerve and the Acclaim. It depends on how they're going to do it, but I think that, again, is a very good example of setup and delivery, something, again, that they had been lacking before, in my opinion. The next segment, we have RUSH and MJF. RUSH comes out, does a squash match. That's, again, setting up for the audience, because we haven't seen a lot of RUSH on AEW television anywhere near as much as we've seen MJF. They had a feud that was established last week, and now we've seen RUSH, and the fans have gotten to see his moveset. So now we're a little bit more familiar with his moveset and what his finishers are, etc., which is, again, a setup thing that always happens in wrestling anyway. It's the point of having squash matches. We then set up a big fight between the two of them, which now has set up a match next week, which they announced and said that the first opening segment of next week's AEW Dynamite, which will be commercial free, which will be a match between MJF and RUSH. Set up. Next week we get the delivery. The show continued on with this, and I was quite impressed with the amount of this that happened in the show. We got Shingo Takagi, which is something that we haven't seen for a while. The last 2 years we've had the Forbidden Door show, and one of the complaints, especially from those of us who are New Japan fans and AEW fans, is on the New Japan side, they kind of just threw a lot of New Japan stars out there of not really explaining them to the portion of the AEW audience, which is quite significant, that never watched New Japan, that doesn't know New Japan. And especially now, since New Japan has had a decrease in their audience, there are a lot of people who haven't kept up with it and don't know who the big stars are. Shingo Takagi, I think, has been on both of the prior Forbidden Door shows, but wasn't ever really highlighted. And we saw a video package this week highlighting him, and he wasn't the only one. We saw video packages highlighting other wrestlers as well. A lot of the female wrestlers from CMLL that'll be participating in Stardom that'll be participating in the Forbidden Door show. We were also set up at the end of the show, Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay in their upcoming match at Forbidden Door, and the fact that, you know, it's kind of gotten around on the internet that the two of them had a match before. They had this little funny dance routine that they did, but it's been kind of a friendly thing. But now we've set up that Swerve, who is now at the focal point, despite what Busted Open Radio said, Swerve Strickland is now involved as the world champion in two major storylines on the show. And the MJF RUSH thing is kind of sitting in the background because MJF has called out the world champion Swerve Strickland as well. So Swerve is at the center of a lot of stuff going on right now. And him going into Ospreay saying, you think this is still a joke, this is not a joke, this is not funny, this is serious, and kind of trying to draw out that aggressive side of the Billy Goat. And they did this wonderful thing. This was really well done the way they did this. I don't know who came up with this idea, but whoever did it they should get a raise. There's a point in the conflict between the two of them where Swerve is holding the AEW World Championship belt in front of Ospreay's face and telling Ospreay that you can't carry the weight of this. And Ospreay, who's already the Continental Champion, they kind of bump into each other, and the way the camera angle was and the way they did it, it was so well done. There was this kind of sleight of hand where they bump into each other. Swerve goes to turn one way, Ospreay goes to turn the other way, and Ospreay winds up somehow with the AEW Championship in his hand. He's got both belts, and he puts them both on his shoulders. The crowd the way they played it off, the crowd ate it up. The visual told the story itself, and Ospreay goes, I can kind of hold the weight of both of these. Swerve takes his belt back and says, if it was anybody else and we weren't friends, you'd be a dead man. AEW this week, and now hopefully this continues, because it is, again, part of the criticism. The criticism was always that they don't tell stories. It wasn't that they don't tell stories. It's that their story craft wasn't refined. And it still needs some refinement. There is still something to their story craft which isn't quite there yet, but this is a big, in my opinion, the last couple of weeks have shown a big move towards them getting it down. And over time, they will refine this. We saw stuff with Samoa Joe and Hook and Katsuyori Shibata, which is really good as far as setup and delivery. There's a lot going on here that they're doing well. There's some things that they didn't do well on the show, as always. Nothing's perfect. But I'm encouraged that they're seemingly understanding this concept of setup and delivery that you kind of need. Again, AEW, it is a pro wrestling show, but it is a pro wrestling show in the West, in the United States. And sometimes you got to cater to the audience. The audience is conditioned to be a certain way. They've been conditioned for 20 years at least now to expect this type of storytelling on a wrestling show and on a TV show in general. So there are more of these narrative tropes that they need to inject. And I was pleasantly surprised to, not surprised, I should say. I was pleased, just put it that way, to see a lot more setup and delivery. So we came out of AEW Dynamite knowing some more wrestlers who are going to be in Forbidden Door, knowing some more matches that are going to be in Forbidden Door that are set up, getting to know a little bit more about some of the wrestlers that are not regulars on AEW television, like Shingo Takagi, like RUSH, and some of the women's wrestlers. We've set up Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland. We've set up Swerve in multiple storylines as the central main character on the show right now as the world champion. We set up the Blood and Guts match. We set up the match with RUSH and MJF. We also set up a couple matches for Collision coming up this Saturday. In particular, one I'm very much looking forward to, which is the House of Black against the Bang Bang Gang for the Trios Championship. So this is a change that I would like to see continue to happen with AEW. And again, like I said, it's not perfect yet, but they are refining it. They are getting better, and the more they do it, and the more ideas they're going to throw at the wall, the better it's going to be. And if you get more people like Mark Briscoe who are going to do promos like Mark Briscoe did, which was kind of a throwback wrestling promo, but it worked gangbusters on this show and kind of added a bit of energy to that segment. You literally could see with that Mark Briscoe promo the energy pick up on the show, not only as us as the audience, but even Kyle O'Reilly and Renee Paquette. you visually saw the energy pick up in their faces with Mark Briscoe's promo. So a lot of good stuff this week on AEW Dynamite. I hope to see again more of it in the future, but I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Do you think AEW is doing a better job with this storytelling element, like setup and delivery, and like adding excitement and a quicker pace to their shows? I want to hear what you guys think about that. So until then, I will have more reviews, more commentary, and more analysis on here on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. We got some stuff to talk about with WWE. I am slowly bringing back my retrospective series. I'm re-uploading those. I'll have more information on that in the future so you guys can see those videos if you're interested in them. And that's pretty much it. You guys have a good day, and I'll see you later.